Continuing to take a look back at the Raiders' loss to the Colts in Week 17, plus look forward to the potential of the Raiders' future. All that plus more comes up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show. As always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, thank you. We definitely appreciate that. The YouTube page is blowing up. Great job on my man Ari. He's done a good job of making sure we're up there each and every day. He does a fantastic job. You can check him out on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. We will get to your calls and texts coming up in segment number 3 of today's show. Segment number 2, going to talk about a quarterback that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of Raider Nation has their eye on, and I'm kind of on the fence, and I'll tell you why, but I feel like I need to give a good explanation of why I'm on the fence. We'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, as I always do. And before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. I'll tell you a lot more about them later on in the show. Again, want to welcome everyone to 2024. Don't know how many people had an opportunity to listen to Monday's show. I know New Year's is usually that day that everyone kind of recovers from whatever they did for New Year's Eve, whatever kind of celebration they had, if they had a celebration. So, again, want to welcome you into 2024. Hopefully, your New Year's Eve and your New Year's was fun and safe at the same time. But again, let's go ahead and get into the show. And the Raiders lose 23-20 to the Indianapolis Colts, eliminating them from playoff contention. And they have one more week to go. They're going to be facing the Denver Broncos at Allegiant Stadium to close things out. And then it's into the offseason. And the offseason's got a lot of decisions that need to be made. GM, head coach, potential guys on the roster, right? I mean, there's so many different decisions that have to be made. Hopefully the Raiders are prepared, and I'm sure they are, but they got to be prepared for this very, very busy offseason. We had an opportunity to catch up with interim head coach Antonio Pierce on Monday at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, and it was a real quick, media session, a little press conference, as I'm sure you can imagine. Wasn't a whole lot to say. I know it was a lot of disappointment based off the loss to Indianapolis when it was a game that the Raiders should have won, right? Like AP said, the Raiders beat the Raiders on Sunday, not really the Colts, and that's not taking any credit away from the Colts, but the Raiders just had so many self-inflicted wounds and did so many un-Raider-like things that just didn't put them in the position to win the game when it was all said and done. So a couple of quick sound bites I want you to hear from Antonio Pierce. The first one is on how he coaches up guys to play hard when there's no playoffs, or meaning the final week of the season like it is for the Raiders this week.
Yeah, unless you plan on retiring or not playing in the NFL or coaching in the NFL, this is still on your resume. I think it's no different at any level, right? You always look at the last 4 or 5 games or 6 games of a season, how a team plays, how their coach, how that coach, and vice versa. So I think for us it's very important. It's still part of the process and evaluation, to be honest. And I think our guys take pride in playing football. I think they love football. I think we got guys here that love football. I think we got coaches here that want to coach and see our guys win. It's 2024. It's a new year. It's a great opportunity to go out with a bang at home. Get our fan base excited for what's going to come in the future.
So there was AP talking about that, and I really am interested. Like, I've been talking about Antonio Pierce as the head coach, and I fully back him and think that he should be the guy. I think he's the right guy for the job. I do think that there needs to be some tweaks in addition to the coaching staff, but I think he's the right guy. I'm not going to change my mind based off of one loss or, a couple losses. Like, no one ever expected AP to go and win every single game, all 9 games that he had an opportunity to be the head coach. And we knew that there was going to be moments where it wasn't going to look great, but again, I think that the Raiders are building something with Antonio Pierce, and they really could have something special with him. But you'll learn a lot about this team. You'll learn a lot about this coach based off what we see Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. 1:25 is the kickoff Pacific time. That's officially been said out and thrown out there by the NFL. So we'll learn a lot about this team and this coach when I'm sitting in Allegiant Stadium in the press box watching the performance against the Denver Broncos, right? Denver is a hated rival Sean Payton, wants nothing more than to beat the Raiders. They got Jarrett Stidham returning to Allegiant Stadium. I mean, there's so many storylines. I don't have to roll them out. I mean, it's just the Denver Broncos. That's really all you need to say. So I want to see what these guys come out of the locker room with, how they interact, with each other, how they go out there and try to win that game, that final game of the season. That's going to be interesting, and that'll really tell you a lot, like I said, about this team, the players on the team, and again, the head coach is the guy who gets everyone motivated and fired up to play, and that's what they've done ever since he's taken over. They come out every single week with their head on fire. So Antonio Pierce was also asked about some guys now that the playoffs are out of the question. Is there a couple of guys that could potentially sit that maybe would have played in Week 18 if they were still in the hunt? And then there's a follow-up as well from my guy Adam Hill. Check it out.
For not me, I'll be honest, that might be something that I need to talk to with Mr. Davis and Champ Kelly about. But for me, if you're healthy, you're ready to go, we play. You play, and that's the way I was raised in this game, and that's how I see the game. If you're able to play, you play. And you play at your fullest ability. And if we have guys that I feel are not doing it, then we'll remove them from the game and from practice and go with somebody that wants to play. But I don't see that being a problem. I haven't seen a 1-2 being an issue here with us.
I guess kind of similar question. Is there guys that you might not otherwise play you want to evaluate for the future that you put out there? Like, is that things you can do now that you might not have been able to do otherwise?
I'm sure that's up for conversation. I haven't put much thought into that one, though. No, sir. Not as of right now.
So that's going to be interesting. And you hear what AP said, not for him, right? Like, hey, if you're healthy, you're playing because that's what you should do. And that's what I would think that I would do if I was in that situation. Just because you don't get that many opportunities, you literally get 17 opportunities guaranteed, and then that's it, right? If you don't make the playoffs like the Raiders did not, they're off into the offseason, right? And you don't know what team you're going to be playing with. You don't know if you're going to be in that Raiders locker room in 2024. You don't know if you'll be in the league in 2024. I mean, there's so much that is up in the air. I would want to go out there and play. If I could play, I'd want to play. But then Adam followed it up with the, kind of evaluation. Would you take a look at a couple of the younger guys? So I'm sure that's a conversation that AP, Champ Kelly, Mark Davis, and others have had conversations about and will have conversations about this week. So that will be interesting to see who's out there and who's not out there. There's a good chance, and I hate to say it, there's a good chance that we don't see Josh Jacobs again, right? And and I talked about it a little bit on Monday's show, but that's a harsh reality that there's a chance he might not play for the Raiders ever again, and that's a shame because, man, Josh Jacobs is one of my favorite players, and he's been a great dude to follow and cover ever since the Raiders drafted him back in 2019, and obviously this year getting his contract, the way he got it was not the way that he wanted it. He obviously felt like he deserved more, and I believe that he did earn a long-term deal, but again, it's a business. You know how the NFL goes, and especially running backs, you know how they're treated. So there's a good shot that we don't see Josh Jacobs again, and that would be a shame. The final soundbite I want you to hear from Antonio Pierce as he met with the media on Monday at the Intermountain Health Performance Center was just about what he's learned about himself since November 1st when he took over as the interim head coach.
Each and every week, you've learned something new about myself. I've learned something new about myself. This is a game, regardless of how much you've played or been in, there's always something new that comes up that you have to adapt and adjust to. That's been a good part of the process of growing. Understanding players, coaches, the dynamic to maintain that at a high level each and every week, to bring it each and every week, and what that takes and what it looks like. I think that's something that, I'm going to reflect on and hopefully get better as I go along. Excuse me. At the end of the day, everything's going to be looked at in wins and losses. And I think that's fair, and that's what this business is about. I said that at the very beginning, right? It says production-based, and it's about wins and losses. But I do also think it's about what do you build in the foundation. And I think for the most part, in these 8 or 9 weeks, there's been a solid foundation that we've built as a team and as an organization that we can look on and say, okay, those are things that went well, and there's some other things that we could do better.
So there's AP just talking about what he's learned about himself since taking over as the interim head coach on November 1st. And I always go back to that quote where he said the worst day he'll be as a head coach is the first day. November 1st. He's going to continue to grow, and I think that that's what he's doing, and he has done over the past, handful of weeks since he's taken over, heading into the final game of the season, the final week of the season, Week 18. He takes over on November 1st, has 9 games guaranteed that he can coach them up, and he's going to coach them up, right? And that's why I go back to the first soundbite that you heard. I really want to see what it looks like on the field at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday, just to see what it looks like. Even when the team is not in contention, how do these guys go out there and play for him? Currently, if you're paying attention to the draft, and I know that pretty much everybody is, and I'm paying attention to the draft as well, the Raiders currently are the number 11 overall pick. They'd pick number 11 in April. looks like the highest they can get in the draft is number 8, and the lowest they can get is number 14. So just something to hold on to. Obviously, we'll continue to update it, but it looks like they can't get any higher than 8th without trading up, obviously, and they can't go any lower than 14th. So that's kind of the range of where the Raiders will be drafting in April. So that's obviously something to think about and pay attention to as you start thinking about what the Raiders could potentially do for the future and as they continue to put this roster together. But again, the most important thing is who's the GM, who's the head coach, is there a head of football operations? Like, those decisions have to be made quick, fast, and in a hurry before anything else could be made. So those decisions, hopefully Mark Davis has a good idea of what he wants to do as far as that's concerned. Today at the Intermountain Health Performance Center at 11 a.m. Pacific time, at 11:30, defensive coordinator Patrick Graham will speak at 11, and then offensive coordinator Bo Hardegree at 11:30. We're supposed to talk to interim coach Antonio Pierce on Wednesday, and then we'll get another opportunity to catch up with him on Friday. And then, of course, the game is on Sunday, and then Monday it wraps everything up. So that's all I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 2, want to talk about a quarterback that everyone's talking about. Matter of fact, got a call from our guy Heavy D, and he's talking about this quarterback who's currently in the league and why he's actually trying to convince me he's the right way to go. We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. How cool is that? You can lose. You literally can lose, and you still get $150. The app is easy. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and a whole lot more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. Why not, right? FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into a conversation about current Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. There's been a lot of conversation around him because he's probably on the outs looking in from Chicago's standpoint. They have the #1 overall pick in the upcoming draft in April, so they'll probably go get Caleb Williams, and they'll probably try to trade Justin Fields. Champ Kelly is currently in the Raiders front office as the interim GM, and he was in Chicago when they drafted Justin Fields. So there's an easy connection for the Raiders to go out and make a move for him. I've been against it, but Heavy D, he called in and he wanted to try to explain to me why the Raiders should go after Justin Fields. So we'll let you hear from Heavy D. I'll let you hear his call, and then I'll give my rebuttal and my thoughts. And I really want to go ahead and just break it down into one segment because I wanted to take my time with it. So here you go. Here's Heavy D explaining why Justin Fields should be the guy.
Hey, I just got done listening here in Western New York. This is Heavy D. Just got done listening to the show. I feel like compelled to try to convince you that Justin Fields is our guy. As long as we're already talking about this stuff. So, in Breaking Bad, the greatest show of all time, hitman Mike Ehrmantraut was going to take some drastic measures, and he said, we need to take a full measure, not a half measure. And that's what I'm worried the Raiders are going to do. Another half measure, another Andrew Walter third-round draft pick to try to address the situation. If we're going to get a quarterback, it's going to hurt. We're going to have to give up a lot to get him, but you can't win in today's NFL without a good quarterback, and we don't have one. And we don't have guys that can pick up 3rd and 5 with their legs. Aiden O'Connell's kryptonite is picking up 3rd and short. Jimmy G wasn't much better. But Justin Fields is our man. If they are going to go quarterback, I would happily ship our #1 pick for Justin Fields, and we still have one very affordable year with him, and another year after that, we could pick up the 5th-year option right away. I've been watching him since he's come back from that injury, and Justin Fields is turning into a hell of a player. And we need a mobile quarterback. I can't watch another Raider quarterback just sit back there on 3rd and 4. And the pocket starts to collapse, and they either get the happy feet and throw an errant pass or just take the sack. I'm for that, or just packaging players that Raider Nation doesn't want to package and picks and getting up into 1 or 2. But no more half measures. And Jaden Daniels, I know everybody's hot on him right now. Anyone I've looked at in the industry doesn't think he's worthy of a first-round pick. Great college player, but not not the pro prospect, and we would have to probably trade up to get him. Justin Fields is probably there for the taking. We'd finally have a mobile quarterback and somebody dynamic. Tell me Las Vegas wouldn't love a running QB, a guy who can make things happen with his legs. I think Justin Fields is our guy, or you just package up whatever it takes, even though it's going to hurt, and you get up there to 1 or 2. But no more third-round picks on the Andrew Walters of the world. No Tyrod Taylors, no Jacoby Brissett's, none of that. All in or nothing. You have a great day. Keep up the good work.
So there was Heavy D. Great call. Thank you so much. I appreciate where you're coming from, and I totally understand it. I agree. No half measure. I think that's a style that needs to go out the door for the Raiders. I think that they've done that for far too long. You've got to do whatever it takes to go get your guy. Me personally, just don't think Fields is your guy, and I wouldn't give up a number 1 for him at all. I mean, think about it right now. If the season ended, the Raiders would be picking at number 11 overall. You're willing to give up the number 11 overall pick for Justin Fields, which is actually where he was drafted a few years back? I don't think he's proven anything to show that he's a number 1 or a first-round pick at this point, but I understand what you're saying. So this is why, and it's funny, I was tweeting back and forth with Mo Moten on Friday, and Mo's a great friend of mine, really sharp football mind. He doesn't get too high or too low. I really appreciate Mo's thoughts, and I told him the only pushback I would have on Justin Fields is the 5th-year option decision. If you do like him, you have to extend him soon after, and the money will be a lot based off average quarterbacks, what they're getting. So I don't think he's proven that yet. So, of course, me and Mo had a little bit of push back and forth, just kind of friendly conversation and healthy conversation. But I wanted to take it a step further here on the podcast, so I got a few notes here. Justin Fields' contract in 2024 is very reasonable, $1.6 million. That is fantastic, right? That is a great contract right there. That is a special teamer. That's fine. That's fantastic. But here we go. The 5th-year option must be decided by May 3rd or around that time, which is going to be just under $22 million. Still, not bad at all, right? $22 million for 1 year, not bad, and especially when you got a $1.6 million deal for 2024. He's a free agent in 2025, so you have time to make a decision. Now, this is where the problem comes in. Quarterbacks these days are going for about $40 million a year. So I look at Justin Fields and say, has he done enough to be a $40 million a year quarterback? That's my question. Now, he might go out there and wow it next year for the Raiders, but I just don't see it based off of what he's done. What do I mean by that? Well, just this year alone, he's played in 12 games. He's completed 61% of his passes, 216 completions for 2,414 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 picks. He has ran for 630 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. He's got the mobility that I like, obviously. But he's never had a season where he's played every game. He's never had a season where he threw for more than 17 touchdowns. He did run for more than 1,100 yards and 8 TDs in 2022, so that's great. But again, he hasn't shown it with his arm. And that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, I want a mobile quarterback. I make no bones about that. I think mobility is so important now in the NFL in general, not just with the Raiders, in the NFL in general. But he hasn't proven that he could be that guy. And at $40 million a year, think about this. Compare and contrast this. Bryce Young, who was the number 1 overall pick in 2023 of the Carolina Panthers, his deal, 4 years, $37 million fully guaranteed with the 5th-year option. Think about that. 4 years, $37 million fully guaranteed is what Bryce Young is going to be receiving. Justin Fields, if he does do well and the Raiders pick up his 5th-year option, okay, again, $22 million, fine. That's cool. But once you start getting into the $40 million a year range, I don't know if he's that guy. And, he might not be, and you might decide just to move on from him. But can you get some kind of value for him in a trade? Do you just let him walk or what? Or are you stuck with a quarterback who's not the guy that you thought he was? So I look at other quarterbacks based off of Bryce Young's contract. Jaden Daniels, you mentioned him. He's going to be a top 5 pick. You would have to trade up to go get him. You're absolutely right. But he does have all the intangibles to be an NFL quarterback. There's no doubt about that. I'm not too sure who you've talked to. And, of course, throughout the offseason, we'll have plenty of draft conversation here on the show. And I'll bring plenty of guys onto the show that'll break it down. Jaden Daniels is that dude. Michael Penix, another dude. I don't know if you were watching the Sugar Bowl on Monday night. Oh, man, that was – Michael Penix could sling it. And, look, I'm not just a prisoner of one game, because I've been seeing Michael Penix all year long, and I thought that he was a hell of a quarterback anyway. Nice lefty. He's got a nice touch on the deep ball, and he's mobile enough. Like, I'm not asking for 1,100 yards, but he's mobile enough where the pocket starts to collapse. He can move around. He can move up in the pocket. He can run for a few yards here and there, but he can just shift the pocket and then deliver a throw. I like him. J.J. McCarthy, I don't know if you saw the Rose Bowl on Monday from Michigan. Now, I'll say this. I'll put an asterisk next to J.J. McCarthy. If the Raiders were to get J.J. McCarthy, more than likely Harbaugh's the head coach of the Silver and Black, right? I mean, it makes too much sense to me, a 1-2 punch. And that's another reason I like Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is very familiar with Antonio Pierce. After he won the Heisman Trophy, he shouted him out. He talked about him many times. Multiple times that he was interviewed, he talked about AP and what he meant to him. So I think that you would get the best version of him as well with AP. But J.J. McCarthy, I think that means that Jim Harbaugh is the head coach. Bo Nix from Oregon, I think he's a gamer, right? I mean, I know he seems like he's been in college or was in college forever. I respect the fact that he played in the bowl game when he didn't have to, right? We watched that game early on Monday, on New Year's Day. Watched that bowl game against Liberty, and he didn't have to be in it. How many guys opted out? And Bo Nix is like, I want to go play with my dudes. He showed a lot in that. He's also a guy that can move around. He's also a guy with a strong arm. He's also a guy that's a little bit older, been in college for quite a while, so it might not be such a learning curve for him in the NFL. I mean, there's dudes out there that you can go get. Obviously, Caleb Williams and Drake May, you'd have to trade up to the number 1 spot to get them. But those are just some guys that I'm looking at. And that's why I look at Justin Fields and say, thanks, but no thanks. Now, look, I said it on Monday's show. No options should be off the table for the Raiders. I'm just saying what my preference is, right? The Raiders should have all options on the table because I, again, think that they need to upgrade the quarterback position. I like Aiden O'Connell. I like Aiden O'Connell as a backup. And 2023 NFL season has proven that you need a quality backup in this league to survive. So I think that Aiden O'Connell could definitely be that guy. I think he's a guy that the Raiders could, if he had to go into the game, they could feel confident about. I just don't think he's your franchise quarterback that's going to take you to the promised land. That's just me. Right? Obviously, the guys that are upstairs and the coaching staff are a lot smarter than me. They know what they're looking at and know what he could bring to the table and know what he does in practice and all that. But just for my money, he's just not that guy. But those are the options, and I do appreciate the call, and I understand the thoughts about Justin Fields. I just feel like, and I know that there's quarterbacks that have not done well in certain locations, then they leave, and all of a sudden they shine. Like Rich Gannon, for example. Like, he wasn't great as a journeyman around the league. I thought he was pretty good in Kansas City, but he was a journeyman. He wasn't great. He went to the Raiders. He became a league MVP. Jim Plunkett is another example. There's guys that we could talk about all the time. He was a bust in New England, wasn't good in San Francisco, went to the Raiders. He was the dude, right? Should probably be in the Hall of Fame. So, I know that there's chances that Justin Fields might get with the Raiders, and all of a sudden, bing, that light turns on, and he's, $1 million, and he can compete with Patrick Mahomes, and he can compete against Justin Herbert and, whoever's the quarterback in Denver in 2024, because it's not going to be Russell Wilson, and it's probably not going to be Jarrett Stidham. Most likely it's going to be someone that they go and get in the upcoming draft, and there's plenty of guys, as I just rolled out, that are options to be that quarterback. So, he that could happen. I just, those are the reasons why I'm not the fan of Justin Fields. But again, I totally understand where everyone's coming from. And again, 2024 salary, very cheap. $22 million for the 5th-year option, not bad. It's after that I have a little bit of a problem. Like, okay, are you really willing to give him $40 million for something that, well, he doesn't look like on paper yet, on what he's done on the field, actually. He's not worth that $40 million right now. He hasn't built up that resume to be a $40 million a year guy. But that's just me. What says you? 707-654-4693. That's the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Your calls and texts will come up next in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You against the numbers. That's it. You're not going up against other players, other pros, sharks, none of that. You pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in just like that. They got basketball seasons here now, right? You could pick combo projections. That's one of my favorite to talk about. Football and basketball. It's a specials league. You could combine a player from NFL. You could combine a player in the NBA, and you go again. You take the combo. You take the stat projections. You decide more than or less than. And again, the most important part, you watch the winnings roll in. Reboot policy, I think that's important. We always need insurance, right? That's basically daily fantasy sports insurance. It's called a reboot policy. Your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured for football and basketball games. If a player leaves the game, doesn't come back in the second half, the player is rebooted. Just like that. What you need to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code is LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Mike in New Jersey. He's calling to talk about the quarterback, the OC, and talks about the old Raiders offense. Here he is, Mike in New Jersey.
Hey, Q, this is Mike from New Jersey. Well, sad that we lost the way we did, but yeah, everybody's beating up on the quarterback, AOC. But what about the offensive coordinator? He's the one calling all the damn plays, and he's a rookie. He's going to follow him out. He's not a seasonal quarterback. But if we had Carr, we wouldn't be in this mess. We would be fighting for the West championship. And now all those Raiders fans that couldn't stand him and everything else, what are they thinking now? Now that the Saints are in the playoffs, But I think we need an offensive coordinator, that's definitely. And we got to change this offense. We need to go to, they should go back and look at the old Raider films with their offense. They ran, they threw, they used the tight end, which we're not doing. I don't understand that either. And they ran the ball, We should be doing the same thing. Our defense finally picked up, stupid mistakes that they got to start correcting. But the one thing I think we should do, and I'll run it by you, what you think, take Mad Max and make him a blitzing linebacker. Let him roll like Ted Hendricks used to do, from left to right, right to left, and pick out a spot where he can blitz and cause confusion on the offensive line. I don't know what you thought on that. And get another defensive end that, can do that, I don't know, it's experimental, but I'll tell you what, he's very agile, But, I'm a little disappointed in the head coach. He should have went up there and told the offensive coordinator to get on his ass and told him, yo, let's step it up here. And another thing that AOC does wrong, he takes too long to backpedal. He's got a 4 to 7 yard drop back, and he's taking his time dropping back. Okay? And he doesn't fake well with his hands when he's faking the pass. That's another thing that I noticed. And the reason how I knew that, I watched Flacco last week, and I'm telling you, that's an art that's lost. But we got to go back to the drawing board. I don't think we need to work on the offensive line. There's not much that we need to do, but I'm a little disappointed at Avante, watching them run the patterns, run slow off the line and everything. I mean, come on, you think that these guys are stupid? I mean, you dogging it when you're not going to get the ball, and then you're going to run hard. Any smart defensive player is going to pick up on that, right? But I'd like to see him back, but I'm just a little disappointed. They need a good second in command. You know what I'm saying? To, teach him a little here and there.
Mike, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. The OC definitely needs to share the blame, right? Bo Hardegree and Aiden O'Connell, it's funny, they have had good moments, and they've had really good moments, and then they've had bad moments. So they're inconsistent, and it's tough to be consistent when there's so much new, right? From the head coach, Antonio Pierce, new, right? The interim GM, new. But we're talking about the field. OC, play caller, new. Quarterback, new, right? It's so much new that it's hard to really figure it out. But this team has too much talent just to go, well, these guys are new, and we're gonna just let them, get comfortable in the position. So I think that, Bo Hardegree at some point might be a great offensive coordinator, might be a great play caller. But right now, if you keep Antonio Pierce, then you've got to get a sharp OC around him. You really do. Just my opinion, because of the consistency. I think that the staff around Pierce could be a lot stronger. And he can use his connections that he has, either guys he's played for, played alongside, or just guys he knows in the NFL. And let's not get it twisted. The dude's got connections, right? He didn't play in the NFL for as long as he did, didn't win a Super Bowl, and was around as great, NFL minds as he was for nothing. The assistant head coach, as you mentioned, might be a good idea. That could be Patrick Graham. That could be a guy offensively. There's a lot of different things that they can do, but the staff around AP needs to be a lot stronger. I think the quarterback needs to be upgraded, and that's just me. But thanks for the call, Mike. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from the original old school Raider, a very lengthy text, so stick with me here. It says, aloha, Q. Greetings from the Hawaiian Islands, which, of course, gets me off top because, right, I'm a big Hawaii fan. He said, this is the original old school Raider, the silver and black historian. I've been a diehard silver and black fan since the 70s. I genuinely appreciate your complete and honest coverage of the Raiders. I'm going to go a little off script and suggest listening to Al Davis's interview with Steve Sable from 97 on YouTube, which I believe is Al Davis's Nostradamus moment about Antonio Pierce and as to why he should be the Las Vegas Raiders head coach in 2024. As a proud member of Team AP, I'm thankful that you continue to reiterate as the midseason interim head coach, Antonio Pierce did not draft players nor experience a free agent period, bring in his own coaching staff, have an offseason or training camp with the players and staff, but most importantly, implement a playbook with his handprints all over it. If AP becomes the head coach, I hope he readjusts the offense coaching staff and potentially allows Edgar Bennett to have a second opportunity as an offensive coordinator. The former Green Bay OC from 2015 to 2017 record was 10-6, 10-6, and 7-9 before coming to the Raiders in 2018. I would also recommend looking at EB's positioning coach achievements as both the Green Bay's wide receiver 2011 to 14 and running back coach 2005 to 10. He has the most tenure with the Oakland and Las Vegas Raiders offense coaching staff and the most success in advancing the careers of Devontae Adams, Mac Hollins, Hunter Renfrow, Nelson Aguilar, and Seth Roberts. I would be remiss not to mention this year's accomplishments of Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker, which all Raider fans are pleasantly surprised and hopeful for the team's future. I can confidently argue that both AP and EB epitomize Al Davis' vision that the fire burns the brightest here is the will to win. But the greatness of the Raiders is in its future, in its present group, so they can carry that message and carry that torch and carry the banner way in the 20th century. Much mahalo and go Raiders. Lengthy text, sorry. So a lot of stuff right there to unpack, but you get it. You know, big-time fan, obviously, of Antonio Pierce. Suggestion of Edgar Bennett being the offensive coordinator, and that could be something. He has been around the team for a very long time, and I think a lot of guys from Devontae Adams and others do credit him for the success that they have in the league because he's helped coach them up. And there's a reason why every coaching staff keeps him around, right? I mean, he wasn't an original Josh McDaniels guy. He was original John Gruden guy. Then a McDaniels guy, and now an AP guy. So, yeah, I mean, he's been around for a while, and you could be onto something with that. Thanks so much for that. I do appreciate you. Next up, got a call from Raider Lever. He's calling to talk about the coach, the quarterback, and the fact that the Raiders had a chance to win the game on Sunday, even though they didn't do too much. Here he is, Raider Lever.
All right. It's Raider Lever. Q. Much respect. I love. This one season is over, right? I'm just going to make this quick. Keep AP. O'Connell's not the guy. I don't know if you give a third for Fields, maybe. Go draft a guy, you know, personally. I like Bo Nix out of Oregon. A lot of people aren't going to feel that, but he might fall to us without having to move up. Defense on point. We made some penalties. We got some, you know, some dumb mistakes like that penalty on the kick and stuff like that. But, I mean, overall, our offense just couldn't do anything. Pump. Punts don't win games. And, yeah, we had a chance in the end. With all the penalties and all the offensive miscues and everything, we still had a chance to win that game. Our defense is solid. AP's the man. Bo Hardegree got to go. Aiden O'Connell, you know, he's a backup. It is what it is. Champ Kelly, keep that man. You know what I mean? Keep it in-house. Like, legit, we just got to keep it in-house. But, nah, like, Bo, you got to go. Aiden, you're a backup. And you know what? Let's draft quarterback because we're a quarterback away. Maybe some O-line. We may need some O-line help, a little help on the defense. But, I mean, you keep Spillane. You know, you keep all your pieces. Jack, you keep all those dudes, right? Like, this is a good squad. It's not going to take us much to get where we want to go. We just got to fix the offense, man. And I feel like Devontae is going to get traded. Jacobs is going to walk. You don't need to pay Jacobs $12 million next year. Devontae's probably going to get traded. Let the man go to a winning team. You know, like, for now. We don't need that. Like, look at what Jacoby Myers did. Look what, Jacoby Myers had a good season. You know what I mean? He's not Devontae. We don't need Devontae. I mean, I like Devontae, but we don't need Devontae. Let's get something for him. Let's build this team. Go Raiders. Raiders out. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And I'm with you as far as the quarterback. You know, the quarterback being away, like the team is a quarterback away. I think you're right. I think the Raiders have a lot of good pieces. I'm not a fan of trading Devontae unless he wants to go. That's the only little caveat that I have for that. If he says he wants to go because he wants a chance to go play somewhere else and win, then I think he's earned that. But besides that, I'm not dangling him out there for a trade just because I think he's too valuable. Like, he makes everybody around him better. There's a reason why Josh Jacobs had a phenomenal season the first year Devontae was with the Raiders, right? Because Devontae was with the Raiders. Jacoby Myers, I think, is a really good wide receiver anyway, but, it just made it that much easier for him having a guy like Devontae out there as well. They've got to pay attention to him. You got to have a threat. Now, if you decide that you're going to move on from him, you go get a big-time threat, in the draft, then maybe you're onto something. But I like Devontae too much to just go ahead and say that, yeah, go ahead and let him roll. I could see Jacobs being gone, like you mentioned, unless he's willing to take a much cheaper deal than the one he got this year. You mentioned Bo Nix. I mentioned him in segment number 2. He could be a guy that the Raiders focus in on, and then going back to the game real quick, the thing about the punts, I normally would say I don't like the punts either, but I didn't mind playing the field position game. A.J. Cole is having a phenomenal year. He's punting out of his mind, and he pinned the Colts back multiple times within the 10-yard line. Right? The 6-yard line, 6-yard line, 10-yard line. One time he had a bad punt and it ended up at the 24. But outside of that, like, his punts were money. So I really didn't have a problem with that, assuming that the defense was going to get off the field. And more times than not, they did. Problem is that the Raiders' offense wasn't able to capitalize. But sometimes you got to play the field position game. And when you know that your offense isn't clicking, you have to do that. Now, if you have an offense that's a high-power, a high-octane offense, then you can roll the dice and say, hey, let's just go for it on 4th down. And I trust my defense is going to get a stop. But if the offense can't do it, sometimes you got to create a shorter field for them. So I think that that's what AP was really going for, and I was okay with it from that standpoint. Up next, and just got time for a couple more. Matter of fact, just going to have to close it out with this text right here from Bo Rock. Said, this is Bo Rock, and I've been a Raider fan for 50 years. We definitely need to keep AP and Champ Kelly, but Aiden O'Connell needs to be a backup. Our OC needs to go also. I don't mind getting Fields because he's 6'3" and 227 pounds and mobile, and he's still learning. That's Bo Rock right there. Thanks for the text. I appreciate you. And, we'll see what happens with the coaching staff. We'll see what happens with AP. We'll see what happens with Champ Kelly, Aiden O'Connell, whatever he's going to do. I wouldn't just go and get Fields just because of his size, right? I would go and get Fields if you really believe he could be your franchise quarterback. Again, the financials aren't too bad. They're not bad at all this upcoming year, 2024. But then you've got to make some real decisions, and I'd rather make a decision on his skill as opposed to his size, if you know what I mean. Thanks so much for the text, so I do appreciate hearing from you. Still got a call from Emilio in Rancho Cordova. I got a text from Mike in Buffalo. Raider Nation for Life 420 gave us a call. Eric in Dallas from St. Louis hit us up by way of text. We got all those coming up on tomorrow's show. We'll start to turn the page and start to look forward to the Denver Broncos in the final week of the season for the Silver and Black. The 2023 season is coming to a close, and whoa, Nelly, buckle up. The offseason is going to be something special. So we'll do all that, plus we'll have news and notes of the day and your calls and texts, as we always do. So till then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.